Hi everybody, this is Echotransformer. I'm going to show you how to replace the hips and little spring clips and the flaps on your heavy labor. And I'll start just by showing you all the parts that you need to get this project done. So you're definitely going to need some good RC car gear grease. I just got this at my local hobby store. This is molybdenum based, and that's very important, and that's going to help protect your gears from wearing once you replace them. You'll need some kind of fine jewelry type screwdriver, and this is going to help you get the little green circles out of heavy labor. You'll need some good Phillips screwdrivers. I've got a kind of a nice long thin one here, and then you'll likely need a rotary tool to polish up the hips a little bit to get the movement working well. So that's what you need, and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get them transformed to the point where you can actually get at the parts. So I'm just going to open them up here, and one of the things that I talked about are these little green pieces here, these little green tabs that cover up the screw. So you can see I've already got one out and I've got the other one in. So the way to go about doing this is to actually just push on one side, and you'll see it kind of lifts up, and that'll allow you to kind of dig out the part on the other side. So this takes a bit of practice, and you want to take your time doing it so you don't actually damage the piece. The good news is TFC generally includes an extra set of these with the figure, especially those that got the early ones, so you'll have replacement ones on hand. So then the next thing that you want to do is you want to find the main 4 screws that hold them together. I'm going to point to those. There's 4 screws that hold the 2 halves together, and at first this doesn't seem intuitive as to why you got to do these screws and not just those ones on the back, but once I take them apart that'll be clear. So I'm going to go ahead and take those apart. I'm going to get those 4 screws out, and then we'll show you where to go from there. Okay, you can see I've taken the screws out. I've just put them here on the table, and now I'm going to pull them apart, and what you want to do is push the wheels as far this way as possible. They actually slide back and forth, and then just keep working it till you can get it apart, and try to keep all the pieces on the one side. It can be a little tricky, but that'll allow you to have less to worry about when it goes back together. Just take note of where everything goes, and really what you're interested in is this section here. This part here, you're not going to mess with any of that. Just take note of where all the parts go and put it aside. And then the next thing that you need to do is you actually need to take this screw out here, and that's what's actually going to allow you to take these 2 pieces apart and get to the hips where the surgery needs to be done. So again, we've got another screw to remove here, so I'll get that out. And depending on which version of heavy labor you have, you might have some grease on these gears here. Just try not to upset it, and once you're done you can always put a little of the RC car grease on top of it just to finish it up, so it's properly lubricated and won't wear down over time. This is tricky getting this apart, so you can see it's held together really well, and there's no way to really get some purchase on it. So what I do is I just take a blade, a sharp blade, and I just very, very gently put it in there. Just pry a little bit, just a little bit on one side, and then again I take the blade on the other side. Again, really careful not to damage it. I just kind of pry it apart. You can see that actually starts moving it apart like that, and now it's easy for me to take this out. So it's definitely tight in there, and that's good. That's what makes the whole waist articulate. So the other thing is, if you're having a hard time from that point, you can just take a flathead. I'm just going to take a flathead screwdriver here, and again I'm just going to gently push it in there. I'm not going to push really hard, just carefully pry it apart, do a little bit each side till the whole thing pops out. So a little bit of patience here will prevent you from putting any damage on those plastic parts, because you want to keep them nice. There we go, finally apart. So I was really, really careful how I was pulling, and there's the hip assembly ready to go. So the last part again is these 2 main screws. So again, you've gotten those little green covers off, and then you just back these out. Now, you'll probably notice in this video that I've actually got the stainless steel hips installed. I had already installed my set, so I'm going to just show you how to get at them and then you'll be installing your own. I've got to replace my D clips because I have an earlier version of those. So we'll kind of do that all in one step. Again, I'm going to try and keep these screws together so I know what goes where. And there we go. So this little piece comes off the back. You can see the grease left over from the last time I did this. And here are the legs. So we've got a right and left leg, and that's important. And then we've got the actual front flap. So what you need to do here is I'm just going to unfold the leg, and what we need to do to get at this, there's still quite a bit more work to be done to get the gears out. So what I'm going to do is I've got more screws to undo, and I'm trying to keep all the screws in one place so I remember where they go, so I don't mix and match the sizes. That's the one unique thing about this toy, is that it's got a lot of different screws, so it's important that you don't mix and match. You don't want to put too long or too thin a screw or too thick a screw into an existing place. So again, we've got parts that you want to pry apart carefully. There we go. And there, I'm finally ready. All this was just to get to this part here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo that here. And there's a spring holding this together, so as I undo this, it's going to push itself apart. So you don't want it to go popping anywhere. And there we go. That's the part. All that was just to get at this little part here. And this is the new stainless steel part. So when I talk about some polishing and finishing required, what I mean is you'll want to actually use a rotary tool like this Dremel, and you'll want to grind out the inside here, and you might even need to grind this hole here just to get it open enough so that everything moves smoothly. And what you're looking for is this little piece here. So this is the one that sometimes people had to replace to get the hips to line up properly, the legs to line up properly. This little piece here, you actually want to make sure that it just drops in there easily and doesn't get stuck. And that'll ensure that the clicking mechanism works really well when he spreads his legs apart. So then what you do, provided that you've got your stainless steel pieces all finished up properly. And again, you want to make sure that this part can move freely. You can see as I go back and forth, that little gray tab's going to click up and down, and then you want to make sure that it just fits properly over this post. You don't want to have to push too hard to get that over that post. You don't want it loose on this post, but you don't want it too stiff either. Okay. Now I forgot a step. I'm going to put this back together. So I checked the fit, I'm happy. So now I'm going to actually reassemble. So I'm going to put this on there, the spring on there like that. And I'm going to gently push this over top, like so. And then I'm going to hold that, again it's under some pressure because it's on a spring, and put that back together like that. Okay, so I'm just going to finish up and I'm going to hand tighten that. You don't want to over tighten this. You want it so that it moves smoothly, and then we're done replacing the thighs, and then you can put your legs back together. So the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these flaps out here, like that. And then you can see deep in there are actually a couple of little, what I call the D-rings. And these are the parts that actually provide the snapping. And they're tricky to get out, so you just have to kind of work at them. These ones are snug because these are the ones that I made. The factory ones will come out a little more easily. So I'm just going to work at those and get those out. Again, you just got to be careful not to damage it. Use whatever precision tool you need to get them out. And once they're out, you should be good to go. Okay, so I've gotten my D-rings out, and like I said, yours should be a little easier to get out because you'll be taking out the TFC ones. And then I'm going to put 2 new ones in, and it's important that there's actually a left and right in the new clips that come from Shapeways. and you can tell by the actual groove along the top. So you want to choose one of each side with the groove along the top. So there's one set right there. That's a left and a right. And when I install these, what I'm going to do is I look inside the part, and you can see there's a little tiny rib along here. That's how I want to line this up going in. So you can see that when I put it in, see how that little tiny rib right there lines up the part, and that's going to help prevent it from getting in a bad position. Okay, I'm going to do the other side. Same thing, I'll line it up, and then I just make sure that the groove is along the top, and it goes right alongside that little rib in there. And we're good to go. So those are now installed, and now the last thing to do is just to put it all back together. But before I put everything together, I want to make sure I put a little grease. So I've actually got just a toothpick here to apply it. And what I'm going to do is just put a little bit on the actual top of the D-ring in there. I'm going to do that on each side. And then the other thing I want to do is I actually want to do the same thing on the stainless steel. I'm just going to go all the way around, just kind of getting in each little groove around the gear. You don't need too much, just put a little bit on each side. This part's fairly important because without the gear grease, it will wear down faster. This actually just extends the life of the gears. And again, this is molybdenum based grease, and I got this from my local hobby store. Just about anywhere that sells hobby quality RC cars will sell this. So now I'm ready to put things back together, and here's the important steps. So the first thing I want to do is I want these flaps. These are the new flaps. These are the wider ones that I've painted up, the custom ones from Shapeways. And I'm just going to slide those in, and they just slide along the groove there. It's easy enough. And then we want to put our feet back in. Now the important thing is what's the direction for these. So the way to tell is to actually fold these up into kind of the Hercules mode. And then you know that this is actually at the front of Hercules, so that is the way it goes together. So same here, this goes on that side. And just kind of hold those in place. And then you're going to grab this piece here, and that's just going to slide over top. And just check that. Just check that everything's working. And then we'll put our screws in. Now, after I put these screws in, you could go ahead and put those little green caps in, but I don't recommend it. And the reason why is maybe at some point you'll want to change these out again or tamper with them again. So my recommendation is that you don't do that. Just leave the little caps out. They don't make that big a difference. And it'll save you a little hassle later on. So that's pretty much it. The hips are done. I'm going to finish assembling this, and the rest is pretty straightforward because you saw how we took it apart. Thanks for watching.